Hello, and welcome to the Journey to CEO Success podcast. I'm your co host, Melissa Saunders, along with the Patrick Thean, entrepreneur, CEO coach, a USA Today and Wall Street Journal best-selling author. We like to call him the OG of strategy execution. His latest book, The Journey to CEO Success, is a #1 Amazon bestseller. Hey, Patrick,
Hi,
how are you?
Melissa. I'm doing great. It's great to be here. Yeah.
Awesome. It's great to see you too. And as you can see, we are joined by our guest today, Pedro Cons. He is the CEO of Adelante Healthcare and a visionary in community health. Since 2020, he's led the company's 9 health centers, serving 80,000 people across Maricopa County in Arizona. With a background in strategy, integrated health, and social work, Pedro is passionate about breaking down barriers to care and building true partnerships that drive lasting change. Wow, 80,000 people, Pedro. Congratulations.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah, and
Yes.
thanks for joining us today.
It is great to be here.
Yeah. Welcome to our show, Pedro. Hey, I'd like to kick off by just spending about 5 minutes for you to share about yourself and your journey, how you got to Adelante Healthcare as their leader today.
Oh, no, thank you. And, it definitely has been quite the journey. So I'm born and raised here in Phoenix, Arizona. And so growing up, I've had all these opportunities to become a leader and in different ways, different capacities. And in long story short, had a number of different opportunities to grow as executive leadership and now the CEO of a very large federally qualified health center here in Maricopa County in Arizona. And it's been an incredible honor to be in this role. I was appointed to this role in 2020 during the pandemic. So that was an interesting opportunity and growth opportunity for me as well in my leadership development. And today, we've had huge success as an organization.
It sounds like even from young, you've wanted to be a leader. Like, what caused you to think that way, and what in life made you want to be a leader? And did you always want to lead a company? Did you always want to be, leading folks as a CEO?
So when you talk about being very young, right? I don't think anybody just kind of grows up and says, I'm going to be a leader, but it was one of those things where I naturally had those innate abilities and I was leading in different ways and I didn't realize it at the time. And I saw myself as a strong follower. And followership is definitely a thing, and I believe in it heavily. And so my whole thing, growing up was wanting to be a better person so I can really help the leader that I was following. But then eventually that began to turn and people began to look at me as that leader, right? And eventually, had the opportunities when people would say, man, you have great potential, to lead people. And all of a sudden I found myself in supervisory roles, leadership roles, and then director roles and executive roles throughout my career. And again, as I mentioned before, now the CEO of Adelante Healthcare.
That's wonderful. So I'm curious, what are some traits or characteristics you think people saw in you that wanted them to follow you? And by the way, I'll share with you. You said you were a good follower, and I believe deeply that strong leaders are all good followers. And they know how to follow. Because if you don't know how to follow, then you don't really know how to lead people along as well. So I found that
That's a great point.
Hence, it's interesting that you said that you're a good follower there.
Yeah, and I would say that it was just those opportunities, right? And you mentioned what innate talents or abilities, and I would say the big one was integrity. Always wanting to do the right thing, right, and and lead in the right way, and make decisions that were right for our community, for our staff, for just doing the right thing. And I know that it's a thing that maybe most people say, but when I have just kept that to the core, and I know it came from my father. My father instilled that greatly in me, and he was a Marine, and his whole thing was his word was his bond, and so it meant a big deal to me to really ensure that I was staying true to who I am and what my word is.
So authenticity,
Yes.
clearly being authentic, keeping your word, your commitments. By the way, those are all good tenets of execution as well. I always share that execution, I always define it as the ability to deliver on your commitment. So when people tell me that they execute really well, I ask them, how well are they delivering on their commitments to their employees, their customers, their shareholders, their suppliers, like all the people around you? Because if you can't execute well, you will not be able to deliver on those promises and commitments you made. So
that is absolutely the truth, and execution is so important. And you know this in regards to when you put something in place and you build a strong team and you're able to execute on what you want, for the organization. And it can be on a brand promise, it can be, and what your commitments are for growth as an organization, to your employees. I strongly believe in looking at, as we develop our cadence, our metrics, for the organization, it's making sure that we're ensuring that we're addressing the needs of our staff, the needs of our community, and of course, the outcomes associated with our core customer, in our case, our patients.
Yeah, I'm really interested today to explore some of your inflection points. I think that what I believe is that life throws certain things at us, good and bad both, and we make decisions. When we make those decisions, some of them are like key inflection points for us. Like I'm from Singapore. I met my beautiful wife, Pei Yi, at Cornell University, and that's an inflection point. If I didn't meet my wife, I would have gone back to Singapore, and my life would have developed in Singapore. But because I fell in love here in the good old United States of America, and by the way, I've learned that boys follow girls, so that's good because I have two daughters. So
smart ones, at least,
follow girls, and my wife wanted to be here with her parents, and I stayed in the U.S. So that's a key inflection point for me. I'm curious to learn about, like, what are some breakthrough moments in your journey that are these inflection points, and you could share a couple of them, and maybe how you made those decisions, and what your reflections are. That would be really fantastic.
Oh, no, absolutely. You mentioned a couple of them, right? When you met your wife, you had to overcome maybe a fear that you had, right? In regards to asking that question and reaching out to her and saying, hey, do you want to go out on a date? And so the same thing in business, right? Is we all have fears, and that's normal, that's natural. And my inflection point in with my success is being able to face those fears and, and to address those challenges with a response. And that is that regardless what those fears are, that's the beauty of it, is to make that decision to move forward and conquer those fears so that we are successful. And in your case, you now have your beautiful wife, right? and so we have, when we're able to do that as leaders, so much good comes from it.
So how do you do that? How do you actually face that fear, whatever fear it was, and conquer it? How do you do that?
That's a great question, and I would say that for me, it's been a personal journey, right? Because even today, when there's challenges that present, there's always that element of fear, and for me, it's been staying true to who I am and what I've heard from my father, my grandmother, about what it means to be a good, kind person, a leader, and what that looks like. And so I use those influences, that frame of reference, to just help me on my journey of making the right decisions.
And, when you're facing something like that, do you find, I find that a lot of people have trouble jumping in, making a decision, making a move, right? Fear kind of paralyzes some people. And even as I'm talking to you, I'm reflecting on how I feel about that. And to me, I think, you need a good amount of empathy of the situation and people around it. And then you need a drop of fear. Because if you don't have enough fear, you become reckless, right?
Oh, yeah.
Listen, sometimes you could be irresponsible if you don't have any fear at all. But just a little bit of fear may make you just pause for a little bit. But here again, it's like finding Goldilocks porridge, right? It's like if you pause too long, your moment passed. If you didn't pause enough, you didn't think about it hard enough, right? So how do you do that?
It's a great question, and there's you've been in probably in situations, I know I have, when you're in a meeting, you're in a conference, and you know you wanted to say something and you didn't because you were just like, okay, well, maybe it's not something somebody wants to hear. And then afterwards, you hear somebody else say that same thing, and you're like, I was thinking that.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
And so those are elements or moments that we learn from. And there's opportunities for us to when you have that inclination that this is something that I want to do, or this is something I should say, and you want to conquer that fear, just do it, because there's nothing else to lose but just somebody giving a response, and whether it's an agreement or disagreement, and that's okay too. And so once you realize or you face those things and you're willing to accept them, it makes it easier to make those decisions and to just jump in and face those fears. And you mentioned something else, and I would say this, and I've learned this from another program, a leadership development program I went to, many, many, many years ago, and it was to turn up the heat, right? And when everything's going smoothly, something's wrong. You need to turn up that heat so that you can, continue to challenge yourselves to do even more, within your organization, within yourself, and to grow as a leader.
Turn up the heat.
Yeah, that's really smart. And I think what you're saying too, Pedro, is like, listen to that little thing in your head, because you kind of know the right direction or the right answer, and be confident enough in yourself and your skills to say it and to step up.
Absolutely.
So as you think about your current leadership at Adelante, the next generation of leaders, what are the 2 or 3 most important things you feel like you need to impart to them, teach them, or coach them along? What would those 2 or 3 things be that you're thinking about?
Well, I would say that it's been probably what we're doing right now, right? So the last 5 years that I mentioned that I've been here within this organization, it was really to empower our team so that they can make decisions, for the organizations, even when I'm not in the room, right? And so what I mean by that is looking at continuous quality improvement, growing that skill set of decision making. One of the things that I have imparted to the team was what I believe in is that having strong communication within the organization, having a strong decision making element, whether it's them, whether it's me, whatever that looks like for the organization, and also accountability for the organization. And with those 3 things, any team can do incredible things. And so when you look at what I'm familiar with, Patrick, I've used your system before with rhythm systems, and currently use it now, and that really ties in with all those 3 things, right? Communication, decision making, and accountability. And we have been tremendously successful as an organization, doubled in size, and since 2020, we're a $67 million company.
Wow.
Today we're over 130 million, and it's really a part of what we've been able to do as a team.
That's awesome.
And making sure that they're capitalizing on what they have learned and continue to grow in.
That's awesome. You picked on one of my favorite words. You used the word accountability, and I think of accountability as helping people be accountable to achieving their goals, their plans, and for me, ultimately, achieving their dreams. I think some people think of accountability in more of a difficult way. So my secret actually to accountability is to remind everyone that accountability is not about whacking people on the head. Accountability is about helping people to be accountable to the plan and the dream that they have. Because, we all have dreams, right? And if you don't get things done that bring you closer to your dream, you are getting further away. So when I think of accountability, I think of it as being a really positive thing to help people achieve their plans, their goals, and that's why we do the things we do, right? Like in your weekly meeting, do you see things that aren't working quite right? You make an adjustment. All those things help you get closer to achieving your plan. If you don't do those things, I should say, you can't do those things if you don't have accountability. If you don't have accountability to the plan, it's hard to discuss those things.
Oh no, absolutely, and it's a big value within our organization when it comes to what that looks like. And you're absolutely right. For me, it's not about hitting people over the head with a hammer or anything like that. And I know that's in some worlds that's effective, but not in mine. But and so it truly is having that strong communication about what do we need to do as an organization to move the needle forward, and how are we doing this together, and using all the great minds within the organization that I have, right? Everyone is empowered to do so, and they operate as a leader within the organization so that we can come together and do that continuous quality improvement of whatever that is, whether it's changing a policy, changing something that we need to tweak within the organization, changing our culture as an organization, which we've done. In fact, it's been fascinating what we've been able to do from a culture change aspect as well, and moving that forward so that we can be successful.
That's great. I'd love for you to spend some time with us on some of the high points and low points of your journey, because I always say, without without the valleys and the difficulties, we don't appreciate the highlights of the mountains when we get up to the mountain.
Yeah,
but more importantly, I find that with every low point or high point, there are wonderful takeaways that our audience can learn. So would you share, either it's a high point, a victory that you learned from, and you could say, okay, these are some of the things I want to keep doing, or maybe it was a low point, where it was a crisis, something that surprised you, but you solved it, and what did you learn from that?
Oh, absolutely. And I think any CEO would be lying if they said they didn't have either. So I've definitely had many crises in my career, and and addressed them in different ways, and you continue to learn from them. A couple of years ago, we had an issue around our billing, and so that was a crisis because I didn't realize that cash flow had dropped significantly very quickly within the organization, and we needed to make some decisions very quickly. And so there were levers that we needed to pull, but it was taking that step back and taking a deep breath and saying, okay, what do we need to do to correct this, and bringing the team together and saying, what can we do, and keeping the employees in mind, right? And it was going to be very important for us to communicate this message about what changes we needed to make as an organization. And so that was very eye-opening to me in terms of things can happen in an instant, as when you're in charge, and we need to figure out how to get past those things and accept them, and then also be strong for our staff so that they can see that even though I'm probably shaking in my boots, and I know that I am, but they can't see that either, right? But we also have to be transparent and open with them. And so it was treading that fine balance of what that looked like, and learning from those experiences. And I would say that, even when trials and tribulations, happen within an organization, there are many successes. And one of them that we just had this last year, and I'm very proud of, with the team, of the many that we've had, was around our culture transformation. We embarked on a journey in 2023 to begin to, or we had started the cultural shift as an organization, but to redefine who we were as an organization, because we were doing more business in primary care, additionally more business in behavioral health care, becoming a stronger integrated care model. And there were those that were maybe a little confused, saying, we started as a primary care company, now we have behavioral health care, who are we? And so we needed to come back to the drawing board and figure out who were we as an organization, and get that collective voice from all of our employees. And so we embarked on a journey to create a new mission statement, a new vision statement for the organization, new core values, and it's been incredible to see the process. It was a year-long journey, and in my career, I've never seen a transformation like this, and so I'm very proud of it. Our new mission statement is to cultivate health by supporting individuals and communities at every step of their journey, and that came from all of our staff, as well as our executive leadership, or board members signing off on it. But it was truly about the employees and hearing their voice, and so that we can create this new.
I want to pause and double click on this a little bit with you, Pedro. So this transformation was intentional, right? It was intentional. So here's some good learnings for our CEO audience. First question would be, what was the trigger, or what was the thing you noticed, the leading indicator that you noticed that made you say, oh, we've got to refresh and rethink our culture? What was it that gave you that hint that you had to do that?
It was a little bit about what I had, said earlier, and that was that I was getting a lot of questions about the uncertainty of staff understanding who we were as an organization. And so that was a huge red flag for me in regards
And
to.
was it because the kind of work you guys were doing was evolving? Is that
Yes,
why?
yes. And exactly that. And if I may just briefly mention that, we are a federally qualified health center, so we provide internal medicine, family medicine, pediatric care. We deliver over 100 babies a month, in our primary care arena. And then a new line of business that we involved in was behavioral health. Today, we see 700 patients a day in behavioral health alone.
Wow.
So now I have 1,000 patients in primary care, 700 patients in behavioral health care, basically running two different companies within the same company, but we are truly an integrated care organization. And so that's when the questions began to evolve. Who are we as an organization? Are we a primary care? Are we a behavioral health care company? And so we needed to answer that for ourselves.
And what is that answer today? How did it evolve into your new mission? What is it today?
It has been incredible. I mean, to where we're at today, the new mission statement that I talked about, our vision statement of leading a future, which accessible, high quality healthcare sets the standard for all. And then as well as our new core values, which is inspire, which is a mnemonic for inclusion, nurturing, in terms of service, purposeful, integrity, resilient, and then also engaged with our community.
Can you spend a minute just sharing how you did that? Because we actually have quite a few customers who have reached this same inflection point as you, where they are working on like, how do we especially I've seen a pattern where if a couple of companies merge, which are fairly equal size, then they find that they have to rediscover their identity. So we actually have quite a few customers actually in this mode. Would love your insights on did you involve the whole company? Did you do a survey? I mean, what you
absolutely.
do? Yeah.
We did the 13-week race, right? And we broke it down into 4 quarters. And the first quarter was about really getting a lot of information from our staff, truly understanding, what those, the way the staff saw our current culture, what they feel that our culture is moving to, and what that looked like, and then really getting a lot of that input. The second phase was really understanding from all that input, basically what do we need to do as an organization to look at our core values, our mission statement, our vision statement, so that we truly transform and use this as an opportunity to change who we are and the way we respond to things as an organization. And then of course, by the end of that second quarter, getting board approval, for that. And then the third quarter was looking at implementation, and changing bringing it out, highlighting it. And then also the fourth quarter was how do we change completely as an organization? And we have all that documented. So we'd be happy to share with others.
Wow, that is fantastic. And I'm sorry, when did you do this again? When did you
We did it in the year of 2024. So we just finished that.
So you just finished it?
It's been incredible. I mean, you can walk around my organization and every single staff person will tell you about our mission statement, our core, our vision, our core values, and we start and end every meeting with them as well. And
I love that.
It's been incredible to see the transformation. As I mentioned, I've been a part of many organizations and have led different opportunities like this, and I've never seen one that's been truly successful as I have, the way we have done it. And and I'm not just bragging, it's been incredible to see.
No, this is really exciting. Like, what are one or two things that you can say? Because as you reflected just now, you've been part of quite a few, and this has been your most successful one. And usually it takes maybe 2-3 times around for us to go, we got it, right? Like some people ask me, hey, Patrick, how come you're able to do certain things for your company today? I'm like, because I was stupid and it took 4 times around the block. So I love to know, like what are a couple of key things that you think was different that allowed you to lead last year through this 4-quarter transformation to the successful point that you are today, coming to 2025, and everything's good.
Right, I definitely can share that with you, and that is, in the past, it's always been a top-down approach, and that's the way it is in most organizations, where you have the board, and the executive team, the CEO, looking at strategy and where do we go from here as an organization. This one, I flipped it on its head, and it was a bottom-up approach. And so it was about hearing the staff and hearing their concerns and who do they believe we are and who are we. And it came out that, one, they had a culture of family and feeling, connected to our community and our patients. And so we just incorporated all that and made sure that as we created the mnemonic, that came from them as well. And that was inspired. And I was really happy that they came up with a word like that, right? And so it was, to have that as our mnemonic, our core value word, that really means a whole lot more to us. And for them to be able to put it into words was truly incredible.
So if I could summarize what I just heard, number one, bottom-up approach. You said that lots of times you've been part of things that were top-down. The board, the CEO, executive team decides this is how it's going to be. In your case, it was a bottom-up approach. You truly listened and learned what the staff needed, what were the concerns. The words came from the staff. So I gather that you picked up what was important to them versus maybe selfishly what might have been important to you. What's important to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Now, what are you doing in your rollout? So you rolled it out in Q4, if I heard you correctly.
Yes.
Q1 was like figure stuff out. What was it again? Q1 in your fourth 13-week races, right? The first quarter.
Yes. It was getting the feedback in Q1.
Right.
The second one was looking at, what did the new mission statement sounds like?
Yes.
New vision statement all came from the staff as well. Core values, redoing our core values. And so all that came from them, and then went to board approval and the end of Q2, and then began to roll it out. And then the fourth quarter was more of making sure that everything in our system changed. I don't know if you can see that.
We sure can.
And so, you have all these different things. I have lanyards that every single staff person has.
Nice.
And it's on our IDs and so forth, and our website, and everything that touches our patient facing, swag and everything else. And so it truly is the full rollout and what that looks like in Q4.
Well, congratulations. I think, for our audience should be listening really hard, because this is what you achieved, Pedro. Congratulations. It's very hard to achieve. Very hard to achieve, and to do it within a year in a nice packaged way,
Organized way. Yeah, that's
good
nice.
accountability and delivering on achieving that dream of of the transformation. That's just
Thank you.
It really is. That is amazing. Woo.
So I have two last questions, actually. The first question is a time machine question. With all your experience today, if you travel back in time to, say, before you became a CEO, right? As you're taking that first CEO job, what advice would you give your younger self just as you're taking your first CEO opportunity?
Oh, wow. That is a great question. So one of them is a word that I know you use in your book, and that's to be curious. Because curiosity is so important in our life, to learn more, to be open to new ideas, to really take in. Because I can tell you now, if you take the opposite and put me, now and put me in that younger self, I will do so many more great things in this world because I now have that knowledge, right? But with that knowledge, you need to be curious, and you need to be open to learning from others and learning from, so that you can be in those roles in the future.
Wow. Thank you. That's a great answer. My last question is, as I shared with you, our podcast, our show is to help CEOs and leaders, have a joyful and successful life. So my last question is, what advice can you leave our audience for them to have the best journey towards a joyful and successful life?
Well, that's a great question as well. And I would share that, tomorrow, your work will always be there tomorrow, but your life may not be. And so we need to have that work-life balance, right? And I learned that the hard way. when I was 46 years old, I learned that I had congestive heart failure and I needed a quadruple bypass, and that was a life-changing experience for me. And I remember prior to that, I was working to midnight every single night and doing all these other things. And I remember a mentor of mine had told me that once, but I never really took that to heart and said, your work will always be there tomorrow, and because it always will be, but your life may not be. And so we need to live life to our fullest and really have that work-life balance. Many people talk about it. I can tell you today, in 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be in Peru. I'm going to be hiking Machu Picchu, and because I can now, with
Take
you.
me with you. My wife and I will come with you next
Yeah.
week.
and it's one of those things where we have to not just say those things about having a work-life balance. When I leave this office, I'm done for the day. And I realize that, yes, I may need to do something. Somebody's going to call me and ask me to sign something, but I'm there for my family and making sure that I'm taking care of my health and that I'm being there for my family as they need me. And we're taking the vacations that we need to the same time.
Powerful advice, Pedro. I know so many people who, don't actually use all of their vacation time in a year because they're so busy working, and they're missing out, I think, on all of that great time with their family. So I think our audience, man, that definitely connects for sure.
Oh, thank you.
And, I always ask one question, and because I love hearing about CEOs' journeys and, the different things they did to get to point A to point B. And it reminds me of taking a road trip. And of course, we're always doing this around lunchtime. So what's that one snack that you absolutely have to have when you are going for a road trip?
Oh, wow, a snack.
Yeah, I'm a food person, man. I'm always thinking about
Well, we definitely take lots of road trips, and my family, my girls, we go camping a lot here in Arizona, beautiful country. So I would say that my girls, for them, it would be those hot chips. But for me, it's always something. The hot coffee for me, I have to have that along with some kind of snack. Typically, it's a donut of some sort.
Yeah. Well, especially if you're camping, I guess a packet full of honey buns.
Yeah, but I love having those snacks around, and it's part of the journey, right? It's part of the trip.
It is brain food, man. You gotta have it. Thank you so much, Pedro. We told you those 30 minutes fly by, and I could listen to your story for another 30 minutes. So thank you for being on our podcast.
Thank you. I really appreciate the honor of being here. And Patrick, huge fan. So this was definitely easy for me.
Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias. Yes.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, to our audience, I encourage you to buy Patrick's book, The Journey to CEO Success. And until next time, go out there and enjoy that journey.